2 years into our divorced but still living together arrangement, I accidentally discovered my son was faking his autism. The same kid who usually couldn't even string a sentence together. Right now, he was clinging to his mom's arm, whining like any other kid. "Mom, I got Dad out of the house. Hurry up and call Uncle Louis. Tell him I miss him and I want to hang out this weekend." When I heard my son's voice drift through the cracked open bedroom door, I froze. I thought I must be hearing things. But then I peeked inside and saw him, Owen, shaking his mom's arm and whispering sweet nothings. I knew I wasn't hallucinating. This was not the Owen I knew. As a child with autism, he was supposed to be withdrawn, easily agitated, and nonverbal with everyone. A universe away from the lively, chatty boy I was seeing now. And his mother, Rachel, didn't even seem surprised that her son, who normally couldn't form a coherent thought, was suddenly speaking perfectly. It was like she was completely used to it. All the signs pointed to one thing: my son and my ex-wife were conning me. Owen wasn't sick at all. And the Uncle Louis he mentioned? If I had to guess, it was Louis Carr, the man who'd wrecked my marriage. Sure enough, a moment later, I heard Louis's voice on the phone. "Hey babe, what's up?" Rachel glanced down at our son, her voice softening. "Nothing much. Just wanted to see if you were free this weekend. Owen says he misses you." "I'm free, yeah, but what about his dad?" "Don't worry about him. That sucker is a pushover when it comes to Owen. The kid just has to throw himself on the floor, and he'll agree to anything. That's how Owen got him to go out for wontons just now." Rachel's smile widened, as if remembering the scene of our son manipulating his father. The man on the phone laughed along with her. They chatted for a bit longer before getting ready to hang up. Suddenly, Owen spoke up and snatched the phone. "Wait, Mom, I haven't talked to Uncle Louis yet." He turned his back to his mom, a little shyly, and whispered into the phone, "Uncle Louis, I miss you a lot. You have to come pick me up this weekend. Okay?" With that, he hung up, completely satisfied. Rachel ruffled his hair, a look of fond exasperation on her face. "You little rascal. Why do you like your Uncle Louis so much?" Owen started counting on his fingers. "Because Uncle Louis is handsome and gentle and generous and kind, MHM. Rachel nodded in agreement with every compliment. Then, Owen suddenly blurted out, "Mom, why don't you and Uncle Louis just get married? I want to see him every day." The color drained from Rachel's face. "No, absolutely not. Have you forgotten he has a job? Besides, I wouldn't dream of making him do chores around here." Hearing that, Owen pouted. Then, an idea seemed to strike him, and his eyes lit up. "But we still have Dad, right? He doesn't have a job. We can make him take care of me and Uncle Louis." His earnest, innocent look made Rachel laugh. She reached out and pinched his cheek. "You silly boy. Your dad would never agree to take care of Uncle Louis. If that was an option, I would have done it ages ago. Why else would I have you fake being autistic to keep your dad tied to the house? But I don't want to pretend to be sick anymore, Mommy. I want to go outside and play. I want to play." Owen stomped his feet, loudly venting his frustration. Rachel quickly hushed him. "Be a good boy, sweetie. Just a little longer. Your Uncle Louis is dealing with his ex-girlfriend who's using their kid to bother him. As soon as that's sorted out, I'll marry him right away. But when is he going to be done with that? Soon. Mommy will work extra hard this month to get you a complete family." Their conversation left me frozen in place. It felt like a gaping hole had been ripped in my chest, cold and agonizing. I never imagined that the son I had raised with my own 2 hands would conspire with his mother against me. But the facts told me this scam had been going on for 2 years. Back then, Rachel had brought Louis into our bedroom for a cheap thrill. She never expected me to come home early from work that day because I was feeling sick. And just like that, I walked in on them. As painful as it was, I didn't hesitate to ask for a divorce. Rachel didn't try to stop me. She knew she was in the wrong and was generous with the assets. I took what was mine. The only thing I couldn't let go of was my son, Owen. He was 10 at the time, old enough to make his own choice. The court respected his wishes and let him decide who he wanted to live with. But he just looked at me, then at Rachel, and cried, saying he wanted Mommy and Daddy to be together forever. Obviously, that was a wish I couldn't grant. I wasn't the one who had messed up, so no matter how much my son begged, I refused to forgive his mother. The biggest concession I made was agreeing to co-parent with her. After that, we divorced amicably. We agreed that Rachel would take care of him initially. Once I found a job and a new place, we'd take turns. But I had barely found an apartment when I got a call from his teacher saying he'd been acting strangely. He wouldn't respond when his name was called in class. He'd just sit by himself with his head down, as if the world didn't exist. He had also started hand flapping. I was terrified. I dropped everything and rushed him to the hospital for an evaluation. After hearing the situation, the doctor said, "It's possible the child is having trouble accepting his parents' divorce. He's showing signs of mild autism." In that moment, I felt my world collapse. To take care of my son, I had to quit my job and start this divorced but not separated life with Rachel. But over the past 2 years, no matter how much I doted on him, his condition didn't improve, it got worse. I watched, my heart aching, wishing I could take the suffering for him. On countless sleepless nights, I blamed myself. I blamed myself for the divorce. I blamed myself for doing this to my son. Burdened by that guilt, I poured almost every dollar I got from the divorce into Owen, all in the hope that he would get better. I never thought he was faking it. No wonder none of my efforts ever worked. A bitter laugh escaped me. I turned and walked out of the apartment without a second glance. Just as I got downstairs, a text from Rachel came in. "The kid's acting up again. Did you get the wontons yet?" A surge of nameless anger rose in me. I closed my eyes, fighting to control my emotions. After a long moment, I calmed down and slowly typed back, "It's raining. Have to wait." Rachel didn't reply. I looked up at the rain, which was coming down harder now, and my mind drifted back to what happened 10 minutes ago. The three of us were having dinner. For no reason at all, Owen suddenly swept the entire meal I had painstakingly cooked onto the floor. Then he started crying and screaming that he wanted wontons. I tried to soothe him while I cleaned up the mess, but he wouldn't listen, just threw himself on the floor and started thrashing around. I was worried he'd get cut by the broken glass, so I asked Rachel to watch him while I rushed downstairs to buy the wontons. I left in such a hurry that I put on the wrong shoes. One foot was in a slipper, the other in a sneaker. It was completely ridiculous. Not wanting to die of social embarrassment, I had to go back upstairs to change. And that's when I stumbled upon my son acting cute with his mom. That's how I found out he was faking. If it weren't for that, I probably would have been kept in the dark forever. Thinking about how both of them adored Louis, I slowly clenched my fists and made a silent decision. This kid, I was done with him. Downstairs, I didn't go buy wontons first. Instead, I walked into a restaurant and ordered a barbecue rice bowl. I'd been craving one for a long time, but because I had to watch Owen around the clock, I never had the chance to come here, even though the restaurant was right below our apartment. Now that I didn't have to worry about him, I could finally have a decent meal. While I ate, I called my best friend, Alex. He didn't have the best family growing up. He was the only person I could turn to right now. When he heard Owen was faking, he was furious. "That ungrateful little brat. You're his father. How could he do this to you? Doesn't he have a heart? You take care of him day in and day out. How could he keep up the act?" Yeah, how could he keep up the act? I shut my eyes in pain, my vision blurring. I hadn't lost control when he ruined the dinner I'd worked so hard on. I hadn't lost control when I found out my son was faking his illness to deceive me. But the moment my friend stuck up for me, I broke. Hearing my choked sob, Alex immediately changed the subject. "So what are you going to do now?" I looked down. "Would it be okay if I came to stay with you?" I asked tentatively. "Of course. When are you thinking of coming?" I thought for a moment and decided on the weekend. Alex was not having it. "It's only Monday. The weekend is ages away. You're not planning on going back there to wait on them, are you?" I had to laugh. "No way. I'm not crazy. I had my reasons for this plan. First, Rachel was taking Owen to see Louis on the weekend. The apartment would be empty, so I could leave without any drama. Second, I had no proof that my son was faking. I hate to think the worst of people, But to the outside world, Owen was still a child with autism. If I just up and left, I'd inevitably be slandered by people who didn't know the whole story, accusing me of abandoning my family. So I had to stay a couple more days and get as much evidence as I could to protect myself. After hearing my explanation, Alex let out a huge sigh of relief. Okay, that's more like it. You're finally learning to look out for yourself. I'll be waiting for you in Austin. Sounds good. After hanging up with Alex, I had finished my meal. Then, I casually went to a convenience store and bought a box of instant wontons. When I got home, Rachel was not pleased. She immediately snapped at me. These aren't the wontons he wanted. He wants them freshly made. I explained that it was pouring rain outside. Rachel yelled, so what if it's raining? The wonton shop is just a few steps away. Are you going to melt? You're just being lazy. You don't want our son to get better. The moment she finished, Owen lunged at me. He hit me while screaming, "Wontons, I want wontons." Seeing this, Rachel didn't pull him away. Instead, she just smirked. Serves you right for not giving him what he wants. I ignored Rachel, clenched my fists, and silently endured my son's blows. After all, I didn't have any proof yet. Exposing them now would only hurt my case. After a while, Owen got tired and stopped on his own. I nonchalantly straightened my messy clothes and hair. Then I turned to Rachel and said, "I'm not feeling well. You can handle the kid for now." Rachel pursed her lips but didn't say anything else. At night, Owen always became very clingy with her. He even had to sleep in her bed. At first, I thought he was just insecure, afraid his mom would leave while he was asleep. Only now did I realize the truth. Owen wasn't insecure, he was afraid that if he spent too much time with me, he'd slip up and reveal his act. He was just a kid, after all. His acting wasn't perfect. But none of that mattered anymore. Back in my room, the first thing I did was dig out the old security cameras I'd bought. I'd gotten them to keep an eye on Owen. I bought 6 in total. I had planned to install them all over the apartment, but Owen hated them. Every time I put one up, he'd smash it. He broke 4 of the 6, and I put the last 2 away. Now, they were exactly what I needed to get some proof. The next day, while Rachel was at work, I used cleaning as an excuse to place one camera in her bedroom. I hid the other one in the living room. That night, when Owen went into her room, I pulled up the feed on my phone. On screen, the moment Owen entered the room, his usual dazed expression vanished. He jumped on the bed, grinning, and asked his mom for her phone. "Mom, give me your phone. Quick, I want to talk to Uncle Louis." "You little rascal. All you ever think about is your Uncle Louis." Rachel grumbled as she handed him the phone, adding a warning. "Keep it down. Don't let your dad hear you." At the mention of me, Owen scoffed and rolled his eyes in disdain. He dialed Louis and excitedly recounted the day's events. "Uncle Louis, I did what you said today. I knocked over the porridge Dad made. You should have seen the look on his face. It was hilarious. Ha ha ha. You promised me that if I did 3 things to make my dad miserable, you'd buy me a present. This time I want a remote control dog." Hearing that, I froze. A flood of memories hit me. It wasn't just today's porridge or yesterday's wontons. It was the day before and the day before that. For the past 2 years, Owen hadn't given me a moment's peace. It was like he couldn't understand a single word I said. If I told him to go east, he'd go west. If I made porridge, he'd demand rice. When I made rice, he'd say he wanted noodles. It was exhausting. Sometimes, I'd lose my temper, but he'd just stare at me silently and smile. Every time he did that, my first instinct was to blame myself for getting angry with a sick child. Then I'd compose myself and go back to coaxing him. But I never imagined it was all a series of tasks assigned by Louis. For a few cheap trinkets, the son I had raised since birth was treating me like this. It would be a lie to say I wasn't heartbroken. But more than that, I was disgusted and furious. Snapping back to reality, I saved the day's camera footage. Then, I lay down in bed, content, and waited for the weekend to arrive. But early the next morning, there was a loud banging on my door. To my shock, the person at the door was Louis. I stared at him, stunned. He spoke to me in a commanding tone. Owen wants porridge. Go make him some. I shot back automatically. Who let you in? Lewis raised an eyebrow, a smug look on his face. My girlfriend let me in. Girlfriend, so Rachel. She had the audacity to bring him here into our home. Was she done even pretending? I stayed silent for a moment, suppressing the rage building inside me, and said in a low voice, "Get out before I lose my temper." Lewis just scoffed. Who the hell do you think you are? Then, without another glance at me, he turned and walked toward the living room. To be taunted like this by the man who destroyed my marriage. A wave of fury shot up from my feet to my head. I lost control. I lunged forward, grabbed Lewis's arm, and started dragging him toward the door. Lewis, terrified, shrieked, "Help! He's attacking me! Help!" And then Rachel appeared. She shoved me away forcefully, pulling Lewis behind her for protection. I stumbled back a few steps and fell to the floor. My elbow slammed against the hard tile. The pain was excruciating. Rachel didn't even seem to notice. She screamed at me, "Who gave you the right to touch him?" My eyes were red as I glared at her, and I yelled back even louder. "Have you forgotten what you promised me?" Rachel froze, then her expression darkened as she remembered. Back when we first found out about Owen's autism, Rachel had immediately suggested we live together after the divorce to take care of him. I had been against it. A divorce is a divorce. Two people with no love or affection for each other have no business living together, no matter the reason. Besides, Rachel was still seeing Lewis at the time. I didn't want to live under the same roof as him. But Rachel promised me she would never bring him into our home. She said everything we did here would be for our son, and we would never do anything to hurt him. She sounded sincere, so I agreed, and she had kept her word. Every time they met, she made Lewis wait downstairs. She never brought him up. But now, the one man who should never have been here was standing brazenly in our home. Suppressing my anger, I said with a sneer, "Rachel, are your promises worth anything at all? I should have known better than to believe a single word from someone like you. I forgot. You're just a lying piece of trash." A vein throbbed on Rachel's temple. Finally snapping, she roared, "Our son doesn't have a problem with it, so why are you making such a scene?" Of course Owen didn't have a problem with it. He probably wished Lewis was his real father. But I didn't care if the kid was faking or not. She made a promise and she had to keep it. Otherwise, if I was going to be miserable, I'd make sure they were too. Our son would never be okay with it. He's like this because of your affair. Unless, I paused, then said in a joking tone, "Unless he's all better now." The air in the room went still. Rachel reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "What are you talking about? Autism doesn't just disappear." I laughed coldly. "If he's not better, then why were you in such a hurry to bring your lover home? Are you trying to kill him?" Rachel flinched as if struck, clearly not expecting me to lay such a heavy accusation on her. But she quickly made her choice. She turned to Lewis. Maybe you should go for now." Lewis stood there in disbelief. After a long moment, his eyes welled up, and he choked out, "Fine. If I'm not welcome here, I'll leave." No one stopped him, but the consequence was that I had to face Owen's wrath again. He knocked over the hot porridge I'd made, then scooped up handfuls of the sticky rice and smeared it all over my clothes and hair. When I tried to move away, he started screaming and banging his head against the floor. He was making it clear. If I didn't give in, he would bash his own brains out right then and there. I wanted to just walk away and let him be, but then I remembered the camera was still running in the living room. I immediately changed my mind and stepped forward to play along. As expected, it was a mess. My hair was full of sticky, hard-to-wash-out rice. Took me 8 washes to finally get it clean. But I wasn't angry at all. In fact, I was excited to check the footage. I caught Owen on the phone with Lewis. He couldn't wait to brag about his good deed for the day. "Uncle Lewis, I've got good news. I got revenge for you tonight." I dumped all the porridge on my dad's head. I almost made him speechless with anger. "Ha ha ha. If he ever messes with you again, just tell me. I'll get him for you. I won't let you be treated unfairly." Rachel, standing nearby, chimed in, His dad was definitely in the wrong this time. He deserved it. With that, mother and son shared a knowing smile. They seemed very pleased with themselves. I didn't listen any further. I turned and went to get my suitcase. I couldn't leave until the weekend. But since I had nothing else to do, I figured I might as well pack. I thought it would be a chore. But in reality, there was hardly anything of mine in the bedroom. It was mostly books. Every single one was about how to effectively communicate with people with autism. I had spent countless nights poring over them, hoping to find a way to heal my son. Now I just laughed at myself. In the end, I packed only 2 sets of clothes and my important documents. The time flew by and soon it was the weekend. The moment Rachel left with our son, I called an Uber and headed straight for the airport. Alex lived in Austin, over 1,000 miles away. The flight took more than 3 hours. Perfect timing to grab a coffee when I landed. That night, there was another surprise. To celebrate my escape, Alex took me to a bar near his place. As soon as we sat down, my eyes were drawn to a woman in a booth ahead of us. She was sitting alone in a corner, wearing a simple black dress. Under the spotlight, her exposed wrist looked like a delicate sculpture. As I was staring, Alex leaned in and nudged me. "You like her? Go for it." I quickly looked away and shook my head. Alex called me a coward. I didn't argue, just picked up my glass and downed my drink in one go. Just then, my eyes met hers. Her eyelashes were long, and when they fluttered, they felt like feathers brushing against my heart. After about 2 seconds, I slowly looked away. Just as I was about to down another drink, a call from Rachel came through. I got up and found a quiet spot. The second I answered, Rachel's angry voice blasted through the phone. "Jack, where the hell are you? Your son is hungry. Get back here and cook." I almost laughed. "Your son is hungry, so why don't you cook? Are your hands broken?" Rachel was stunned for a moment. Then she cut to the chase and put Owen on the phone. "I don't want to argue with you. The kid is throwing a fit because you're not here. Listen for yourself." Immediately, Owen's high-pitched screams filled the line. Before, if he had screamed like that, my first thought would have been to worry about his throat. Now, I just hung up. But a moment later, she called back. This time, I answered but didn't say anything. Rachel grew anxious. "Jack, are you there? Hello?" I grunted a low MHM. Sensing something was wrong, Rachel's tone softened slightly. "What is this? Are you just going to abandon your son?" I grunted again. Now Rachel was completely bewildered. "Wait, how can you abandon your son?" "Because I heard, Rachel. I heard everything you and Owen said." I spoke slowly, enunciating every word. Rachel went silent, probably trying to figure out exactly what I'd heard. I smirked. "Stop pretending. Owen isn't sick. You two have been playing me this whole time." The line was dead silent. After a long pause, Rachel finally spoke, her voice frantic. "It's not like that, Jack. I can explain. Where are you now? I'll come find you." Most people would have admitted it by now, but Rachel was still trying to lie her way out. It showed just how shameless she was. I must have been blind to marry someone like her and have a child. I let out a cold laugh, hung up, and blocked her number. But it wasn't long before my WhatsApp was blown up with voice messages. I opened it to see a stream of 60-second voice notes. I listened to one at random. It was Owen crying his eyes out. "Daddy, I didn't mean it. I was wrong. Please come back. Okay? I'm so hungry." I didn't reply. I just blocked Rachel on WhatsApp too. The next day, Alex and I were planning to look around the neighborhood for a decent apartment to rent. Living with him wasn't a long-term solution. But as we stepped out of his apartment complex, we saw 2 familiar figures. Rachel was holding Owen's hand, walking toward me. I wanted to hide, but she had already called out my name. "Jack." "What?" I asked, annoyed. Rachel looked me over and smiled brightly. "I'm here to take you home." I was speechless. "Rachel," I said calmly, "that's not my home. We're divorced. Please stop harassing me." "Jack, don't be like this." Rachel suddenly grabbed my wrist, letting out a barely audible sigh. "I know you're angry right now, but you can't just abandon your son." "Abandon my son?" I yanked my arm away. Why don't you tell me why I would abandon my son?" The smile on Rachel's face vanished, replaced by a look of anger. "Whatever the reason, you don't get to bring a child into this world and then not raise him. Yes, the kid made a mistake. He shouldn't have faked being sick to trick you. But have you ever stopped to think about why he did it? It's because you insisted on a divorce. If you hadn't divorced me, would he have needed to trick you? So now it was all my fault?" I suddenly laughed. "You're a cheater. What right do you have to judge me? Since you love tracing things back to the source, let me help you. Why did I get a divorce? Because you brought another man into our bed. If you hadn't done that, would I have needed a divorce? Why did our son fake being sick? Because you taught him to. If you hadn't raised him to be like this, would I have needed to leave him? That's enough." Rachel cut me off, her voice laced with impatience. "In the end, we're both responsible. Neither of us is innocent. The old "we're both to blame" routine. You're right." I took a breath and spoke firmly. "I did make a mistake." Rachel paused, then a look of smug satisfaction crossed her face, as if I was finally about to see reason. But what I really wanted to say was, my mistake was falling for you when I was 18. I wish I'd never laid eyes on scum like you. The color drained from Rachel's face. But she hadn't given up. She secretly nudged Owen, signaling him to speak. Owen got the message and looked at me, his lower lip trembling.
"Daddy, I'm sorry."
"Please don't leave me." He seemed to summon some courage and timidly grabbed the corner of my shirt. "I'll be good. I won't lie anymore. Daddy, can you forgive me?" I smiled sweetly, then reached out and roughly messed up his hair. Owen couldn't keep up the act for another second. You psycho, what are you doing? Get your filthy hands off me." I turned to Rachel, a slow, deliberate smile spreading across my face. "This is the actor you trained? Doesn't seem very good." Rachel was speechless. She grabbed her son and scurried away. I didn't see Rachel again after that. I was busy looking for an apartment, busy looking for a job, busy starting a new life. However, before any job offers came in, the news that I had abandoned my wife and child was everywhere. Rachel had gone to the media and exposed our divorced but not separated living arrangement. On TV, she frowned, claiming with utter conviction that I was the greedy one, angry that I hadn't gotten the house in the divorce, so I had manipulated our son into faking an illness to squat in her home. And my dear son, wiping away tears, repeated one line over and over. "Daddy said if I kept pretending to be sick, Mommy wouldn't leave me. He was just a child, crying so heartbreakingly. No one would doubt him." I opened the comments section, and it was a wall of hate directed at me. "This ex-husband is a monster, using his own kid. Some guys are like that. They see their ex-wife move on and find someone new, and they can't handle it. They deliberately turn the kids against their own mother. If I were this woman, I'd beat the crap out of that scumbag. I heard this guy won't even let his ex-wife bring her boyfriend home. Does he think he still has a chance or something?" Tens of thousands of comments, and not a single one was on my side. When Alex found out, he was so mad he said he was going to hire someone to beat Rachel up. I quickly stopped him. "Don't do anything rash. I have proof that Owen was faking." Alex's eyes lit up. "Then let's call the media right now and bury them." "Wait, it's not time yet," I said. Alex was getting agitated. "Why not? Are you waiting for this to blow up even bigger before you expose her?" "Dude, this isn't a TV show where you need a dramatic reveal. In real life, if you wait too long, no one will care about your side of the story." He was about to have a meltdown, but I remained calm. "Just chill. I'm going to create an account first. Make sure you like and boost my posts later." Although he didn't understand what I was planning, Alex agreed. I created a TikTok account with the username Owen's Dad. The bio read, "The guy from the divorced but not separated story." Once everything was set up, I posted a highly controversial video. It was the clip of Lewis showing up at my apartment and our confrontation. But I intentionally cut it right after Lewis started screaming for help. It perfectly confirmed the internet's theory. I wouldn't let my ex-wife bring her boyfriend home. Unsurprisingly, the video was flooded with hate. I waited until it had over 10,000 shares and everyone knew who I was. Then I started a live stream. Immediately, people poured in. Is that the guy who forced his own son to fake an illness? He actually has the nerve to go live. Divorced but still living together. Classy dude. How are your parents not ashamed of you? The comments flew by, but I remained silent. I only started speaking after someone sent me the first big gift. Hello everyone. My name is Jack. I'm Owen's father. Do you want to know why we were divorced but still living together? Follow me, light up the badge, and I promise, for every 10,000 new followers, I'll release a new video and let you all see the truth. As I finished speaking, the comments got even more vicious. People said I had no shame, that I was using a family tragedy for internet fame. I ignored them all and just kept announcing the follower count. Soon, I hit 10,000 followers. As promised, I released another video. This time, it was the rest of the clip, after Lewis had screamed for help. It clearly showed Rachel denying that our son was better and then telling Lewis to leave. This directly contradicted her earlier statements. After that video dropped, my follower count skyrocketed. As I released more and more evidence, the full truth finally came to light. The internet was stunned. So, the one who taught the kid to fake being sick and demanded they live together was actually the woman? Holy crap. This bitch not only cheated, but also slandered her ex-husband. She and her kid tricked him for 2 years, trapping him at home as a nanny. Rachel, you're a real piece of work. If you're divorced, just go your separate ways. Why torment him like this? Seeing that little monster knock over the hot porridge his dad worked so hard to make, just to get back at him for the other guy, I almost had a stroke. He's just a kid. So don't you dare let him get away with it. With public opinion completely flipped, I gained 1 million followers. But then, I received a letter from Rachel's lawyer. She was suing me for secretly installing a camera in her room without her consent and posting the footage online, which was a severe violation of her privacy. Without missing a beat, I posted another video. This time, it was a screenshot of a chat from 2 years ago. It clearly showed that I had asked Rachel before installing the cameras. Not only did she know about it, but she had readily agreed at the time. Furthermore, my reason for installing the cameras was to be able to monitor my sick son at all times. The purpose was legitimate. Rachel had no case. She had to quietly drop the lawsuit. But I wasn't going to let her off that easily. I countersued Rachel. Her lies to the media constituted defamation. According to the law, she could face up to 3 years in prison. Rachel was terrified. She called me, crying and begging for forgiveness. I wasn't planning on settling. But there was still our son. If Rachel actually went to jail, I would get stuck with Owen. That was not a future I wanted. So I agreed to a settlement. In the end, Rachel paid me $30,000, and the matter was closed. The next time I saw Owen was at his school's entrance. It had been 6 months since we'd last seen each other. I was there to pick up Alex's nephew, Chris. Alex had a last-minute meeting and asked me to fill in. I never expected Owen to see me and come running over. "Daddy, are you here to pick me up?" I just looked at him without saying a word. Tears suddenly welled up in his eyes, and he choked out, "Daddy, can I go with you?" "No." The moment I said it, Chris came running out with his backpack on. He was moving so fast he wasn't watching the steps. Worried he'd fall, I couldn't help but call out, "Whoa, hey, buddy, slow down. Watch the steps." Chris threw himself at me, hugging my waist with a huge grin. "Uncle Jack, why are you picking me up today? Where's my uncle?" I tapped his nose, about to answer. Beside me, Owen whispered, "Daddy, can you take me home? It's getting dark. I'm scared." Without a second thought, I refused. Then I pulled out my phone and unblocked Rachel's number. But the phone rang and rang with no answer. I had no choice but to drive Owen home. On the way, Chris chattered nonstop, telling me all about his day at school. He had me laughing out loud. My eyes happened to glance at the rearview mirror, and I saw Owen secretly wiping away tears. He looked pathetic, but I just couldn't feel any sympathy for him. I looked away, my expression flat. When we got out of the car, Owen asked me expectantly, "Daddy, will you come pick me up again next time?" I replied, "I don't know." The light in his eyes instantly faded, and his mouth drooped, as if his whole world had lost its color. But I didn't care. I turned and walked away without looking back. Later, I saw Rachel and Louis on a daytime TV show about family disputes. It was absurd. They were fighting because they couldn't agree on how to divide the chores. Rachel was disgustedly yelling at Louis for being a lazy bum who just lay around all day. Louis pointed a finger in her face and shot back. When you were sleeping with me, wasn't my love of lying in bed what you liked? Now you're tired of it, you're saying all this? You deserve it. Right there in front of the mediator, they went at it, and soon they were physically fighting again. They were both playing for keeps. One of them ended up with a bleeding head, the other with a broken leg. The wailing was incessant. It was a total mess. The camera panned over to Owen. He was huddled in a corner, crying in terror.